Hey y'all, welcome to another episode of Meal Prep with a Strength Coach. Today we're going to be making some barbecue ribs. The grocery store had them on sale for buy one get one free, so we have 2 racks to take care of this week. We're just going to cut them open and get them plopped down onto a foil covered tray. Then we're going to start on a quick brine. This is meal prep, so we want it to be fast. We're going to put 3 tablespoons of pickle juice. I'm using dill pickle juice, and really we just want that salt and vinegar aspect of it. So if you don't have pickles, you can use vinegar and some salt. And then we're going to use a whole tablespoon of mustard of your choice. I'm going to use some Dijon mustard. I think that one tastes the best in this situation. But again, it's a brine and we're trying to be quick and efficient. And then we're going to get these mixed together. I very much do recommend using a whisk in this situation. And then we're going to pour them over the ribs. We're going to get this slurry massaged into the ribs a little bit, get that salt working. You can by all means use a spatula or the back of a spoon. I very much don't like doing dishes, so I'm going to use my hands and then wash my hands really good before we move on to the next step. If you're not in a time crunch, you can also put this on both sides of the ribs. I'm trying to be quick with this, so we're only going with one side. Then we're going to pick out some seasoning. I currently seem to be obsessed with this habanero pineapple spice mix, so that's going to go on one. And then because I'm going to eat this multiple days in a row, I like to use different seasonings when I have multiple pieces that I'm cooking at the same time. So the other one is going to get a general barbecue spice that I already have pre-mixed. It's got brown sugar and paprika, black pepper, a bunch of different like chipotle peppers and that kind of garlic and onion in there. You can use a store-bought one as well. I just had this on hand, so we're going to use it. I'm just going to make sure that the top is coated pretty evenly with the spices. If you want to put some on the bottom as well, you can. Again, I'm being quick with the meal prep, so I'm going to get it on there and into the oven. The oven should already be set for 400, so we're going to put the timer on for about an hour. In the meantime, we're going to be making some quick coleslaw. We're going to start with equal parts of sugar and white vinegar. In this case, we're going to use a 1/4 cup of each. Then we're going to add a tablespoon of citrus. I'm using lemon juice. If you want more of like a Tex-Mex vibe, you can use lime juice. Then we're going to do 1 teaspoon of garlic powder, 1 teaspoon of onion powder, and not let it stick to the inside of the teaspoon. We're going to use about 1/2 teaspoon of mustard powder, a little bit less than 1/2 teaspoon of chipotle powder. I also like using cayenne pepper sometimes. We'll add some salt. I didn't measure. And then we're going to use a tablespoon of black pepper, and then about 1/2 cup of mayo. And then we're going to whisk. And yes, it looks clumpy and gross when you first start mixing, but using the whisk is important. That's how you get it to be smooth. Then we're going to dump in the bag of coleslaw. You can also opt to cut up a cabbage yourself. I've found that 1 cabbage is about 2 bags of the pre-chopped stuff. For me, I can't really eat through a whole head of cabbage within a few days, and for me, meal prep is all about being efficient, so the bag for me is the better option. We're just going to mix this around till it looks evenly coated, and then we're going to put it into an airtight container in the fridge. Then we're going to make some cornbread. I'm going to start by putting the cast iron skillet in the oven to preheat. It's going to just hang out with the ribs while they finish cooking. Then I'm going to crack 2 eggs into the bowl. We're going to use the Jiffy mix, but I have a couple modifications I do for it to make it work for me. I don't have milk in the house, so instead of 1 egg and 1/3 of a cup of milk, I'm going to use 2 eggs and 1/3 of a cup of water. And then I'm going to add about 2 tablespoons of honey to the mix and some cinnamon. And I'm going to give these a stir, get them nice and fluffy. I want the air to get whisked in there, so I'm looking for that froth to form on the top. Then I'm going to dump in the muffin mix. And then I'm going to give it another little stir. I don't want to crush up those bubbles, so we're not going to be too aggressive with the stirring. We're going to just make sure all that cornmeal mixture is moistened. I set that aside, and then it's time to pull the ribs out of the oven for the first time. I know the pan looks a little burnt, and it ends up just being the drippings that come off it. I just really quick make sure that they're up to temp. They should be above 165, and if they're just not quite but they're really close, they're going to go back in for 10 more minutes, so they usually are pretty good at that point. If they're not up to temp, then you just want to double check them when you pull them out the second time. Then I'm going to slather the top with some barbecue sauce. Again, you can use whatever flavor variation you like. This is just the store brand that I had it in the house. Just gives it that little bit of sticky goodness on the top of those ribs. And we're just looking for a somewhat even coat before we stuff them back in the oven for about 10 more minutes. Then we're going to grab that cast iron skillet that's now hot, so don't touch the cast iron skillet with your hands. And then we're going to pour our muffin mixture into that skillet. I like to use the spatula to scrape the bowl out and just make sure that we get all that goodness. And we're going to try not to really move it around once it's in the cast iron. We just want it to plop in there and start cooking. And then that's going to go into the oven for about 15 minutes. And I check it with a toothpick when it comes out just to double check that it's done. So partway through the cornbread cooking, the ribs are going to be done. And then the cornbread's going to be done. I let the ribs cool a little bit before I handle them. But the cornbread, I want to get out of that pan because the pan will keep cooking it. And this one got a little bit dark on me, so I just want to make sure that we get it flipped out so that cooking process gets stopped. And there's our cornbread. And we're going to get these ribs chopped up. I like to put a piece of parchment paper on my cutting board so that the barbecue sauce doesn't make the board sticky and more of a pain to wash. We're going to get them lifted off the tray and then get them turned around so the more bony side of the ribs is pointing to me. And then I'm just going to find like between the bones and start cutting, and I cut halfway through. This is the most efficient way I've found to cut them. If you have a better way of cutting them, please let me know. But this is the one that I found works. They cut through pretty quickly. Very smooth cut. And then because they're longer than my cutting board is, just to make it easier to handle them, I'm going to cut them roughly in half and kind of find where that attachment point is. Then I'm going to turn them around and cut through the other side, and this way I can kind of tell where the bones are, and it makes it a little bit easier to actually cut them apart. There's that juicy rib. It's making me hungry watching this. I'm going to put about 4 ribs in each of my containers. That for me ends up being a good portion to where I'm full after each meal, but I'm also not overly stuffed like you can sometimes be after eating barbecue. Also, each rack of ribs typically has 12 ribs, so if you split them up in 4s, it ends up being even. And that one was so tender that the bone just fell out of it. And that little one on the end is just going to be a snack. Then we're going to do the same thing with the second half. I think we're going to speed through this one a little bit, but these ones, I was so proud of them. They cut so smooth. Once you find the bone, you can see there, just kind of poking the knife around until I find the bone and then cutting down next to it, not cutting through the bone. And we're going to show you another rib because I just want to share these with you. They smell so good. Don't you just want to taste that? I'm just sitting here editing. I want to take a chomp out of that rib. Clean up with that foil on the board. So much easier than trying to clean up that pan. I'll quickly rinse off that oil spot. And here's the 6 portions of ribs. The ones in glass will be in my dinners for the next few nights, and then the ones that are in Ziploc bags I'll put in the freezer. And then here's what they look like plated up with the coleslaw and cornbread. I put a little bit of butter on top of the cornbread, and this was a delicious dinner. Let me know below what types of meals you want to see prepped. Thanks for watching. Have a great day. Bye!